What's the most important game on Tennessee's schedule in 2022? What's the least most important game? We're going to rank them. Take a little break from fall camp. We're going to rank the importance of Tennessee's football games 12 all the way down to 1 here on a Monday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, and I'm your host, Eric Cain. So glad to have you guys here with me here today, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, or watching on YouTube. Make a Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch, and continue to subscribe and follow us on YouTube. Can't thank you enough there. We got a brand new week. Tennessee football is officially in week number 2 of fall camp. There's a lot going on. There is a scrimmage just right around the corner that's coming up on tomorrow, and we'll recap all that, have coverage for you on Wednesday's show. So we are moving right along, and a lot to talk about from Tennessee football fall camp in terms of players emerging, what's the team kind of looking like, what's, who's out there in terms of injury concerns. We've done a lot of that so far in week 1, and we'll continue to do a whole lot of that, so don't worry there. But what I want to do here on Monday's show is I want to take just a little bit break from the Tennessee football camp, and I want to look at the 2022 season from a big picture from afar. Most important games, like I said in the cold open, we're going to rank them from 12 all the way down to 1. So before we get done here today, you are going to know exactly which games, in my opinion, are worth, more than the others. And of course, you can follow us on YouTube and chat in there on the open chat, leave a comment and give me your details. You can tweet me at _Cain or at Locked On Vols, and heck, you even call on the radio show if you want to, 99.1 The Sports Animal, or find me on the general quarters at volquest.com. We do have Twitter Tuesday coming up tomorrow, so if you want to make your claim there, you can chime in with the hashtag Twitter Tuesday, DM me, tweet me, and any other questions you guys have, we'll spend as much time as we need tomorrow on the show going over your Twitter Tuesday questions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Monday's show, ranking the most important games in 2022. Here in segment 1, we're going to start from the top, if you want to call it that. Top, work all the way down to the bottom. And when I say top, I mean least most important. We're going to go from 12 to 8. So there's 3 games on the schedule this year. 3 of the 4 non-conference games, one of which is a Power 5 opponent. That's Pitt. That'll come later on in the countdown because obviously it is very much important. But there are 3 non-conference games that, really do not hail from the Power 5 conferences. They don't hold much of importance. So it's going to be pretty quick in terms of, how important are they, if we will. So we're just going to kind of have to, go in terms of where they fall on the schedule more so than anything. That, when I'm kind of ranking the importance of those, the Ball States, the Akrons, the UT Martins, it's more so than anything where they are on the schedule. Because let's be honest, Tennessee should roll in those football games. There's no excuse for Tennessee not to roll in those football games. They're still beneficial for Tennessee, in my opinion, because you can continue to work on your craft. I understand Georgia State's everybody's saying, but Georgia State. I get all that. And certainly we can't forget that because that happened, and Tennessee lost the opener in 2019 to Georgia State. However, I think Jeremy Pruitt treated that game much like a scrimmage, and he continued to rotate players in and out, and he continued to do that in the 3rd and 4th quarter, and the game was not anywhere close to being in hand. And so that was some coaching errors there. I mean, Tennessee lost that game, but obviously there's a lot to do with that because of coaching errors. And I'm not going to come off that hill because I truly do believe that. But you can treat these games like glorified practices, glorified scrimmages, but you got to make sure you win the football game. That's the whole thing. Like, you can go in there and work. I mean, you're not going to change your offense or anything, but you're going to go in there and work on certain schematics, work on certain personnel groupings, work on certain plays, work on certain 4-minute drills, 2-minute drills. You can do all that. If there is a player you want to see how they gel in the starting 5 on the offensive line, that's a game where you can do that. If you want to see what a receiver looks like, repping with the top 3 or 4 in that first group, these are games to where you can do that. But more than anything, you've got to make sure the game is in hand. And Tennessee, unfortunately, because when we have these conversations, you're always going to go back to 2019, and rightfully so. You got to win the football game. Tennessee didn't do that against Georgia State. So starting at number 12, the least most important game on the schedule for the University of Tennessee, in my opinion, will fall on week number 3, and that is a matchup against the Zips and Akron at Neyland Stadium. A 7 o'clock tip-off. That game is actually going to be on the SEC Network Plus and the ESPN Plus, so that's going to be the digital-only broadcast. I guess that's only fitting it's not even going to be picked up by a network that this would be my least most important game. And no, that's not me slighting any streaming companies. I am a big streamer. I do not have cable television at my house. I watch everything via the stream. So that's not what I'm doing there. But Akron week 3, coming off a 2-10 record in 2021. You have they were 1-7 in the Mid-Atlantic Conference. Joe Moorhead, remember him? Former head coach of the University of Mississippi State, or is that Mississippi State University? I don't know. That just a couple of years ago. But the Zips have had 6 straight losing seasons, and so Joe Moorhead's going to be brought in there to try to rectify that. But 2-10, week 3, kind of where it is on the schedule. Sure, you want to get off to a good start. You'd love to be 3-0 heading to Florida or heading into the Florida game. You'd love to be 4-0 before that bye week and all that. Akron plays a big role in that because it's on that schedule early on. But right before it's the dress rehearsal, it's the tune-up before Florida, you need to go ahead and work out all the kinks in that one. But in the grand scheme of things, that is the least most important game. Number 11 in terms of most important games for Tennessee in 2022, in my opinion, comes in week 8 against UT Martin. Not sure if that will be the homecoming game. A lot of times they make that non-conference game late in the season. A homecoming game. It would be on October the 22nd. Maybe they'll wait for Missouri at home. Maybe they'll wait for Georgia at home. Hopefully not. Those are November games. But UT Martin is the 11th most important game on the schedule, in my opinion, because this is a game, again, that Tennessee should, be able to handle pretty easily. 9-2 record in 2021. Jason Simpson, of course, has been a very successful head coach at UT Martin. They hail in the Ohio Valley Conference, but why that is significant in just a moment, or why that's just the least bit significant, I will say, because it does break up a strand of 3 straight SEC games. Of course, you start against Florida at home, you have the off week, you're at LSU, and then you are back home against Alabama. You're going to need that breather before you head on and play Kentucky the next week, and then at Georgia, Missouri, at South Carolina, at Vanderbilt to finish off the SEC schedule. So it is important because it gives you a breather, but you need to go ahead and win that football game in order to avoid disaster right there in the heart of your SEC schedule. But Tennessee will win that football game. Go on to the number 10, the 10th most important football game for Tennessee in 2022. That will be the opener in Ball State. Why this one is not ranked third or the least most important is because, well, it's the opener. You want to come out and you want to look good. Tennessee will have a select audience on Thursday at 7 o'clock. There's not going to be many football games going on September the 1st. Tennessee will be one of them. There will be a whole lot of eyeballs watching the University of Tennessee on the SEC network. Ball State is not very good. Had a 6-7 record in 2021. Surprise champions back in 2020, the MAC Conference. You have Mike Nev, who is in his 7th season. His overall record is not good, but in 2022, they have a chance to make their 3rd straight bowl game. So been a program that's been pretty decent of late, especially in the MAC Conference, winning that thing back in 2020. But again, this is a team that Tennessee should just run through. They finished the 2021 record with a 6-7 overall mark. Tennessee can come out, show off that offense, show an improved defense. I mean, Tennessee against Bowling Green last year, what was the final score? Was it 36-3, 36-7, something like that? It was very ho-hum, if you will. But we remember Tennessee struggled at points and times in that football game. And there were the run game was good, but second quarter lull. There were some things that we can nitpick. And let's be honest, we're going to nitpick everything here on Locked On Vols because that's what we do. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're a diehard Tennessee fan and you're doing the same thing. But it is the opener. You want to look good in the opener. Okay. You want to look good in the opening game. That is why Ball State is at number 10. We breaking through here to the top 9. The top 10. We've got 2 more that we're going to discuss here in segment 1 before we go on to segment 2 and the 7 through 4 most important games. At Vanderbilt is at number 9. Obviously, one of the oldest rivalries in college football. These 2 teams have played for over 100 years. And of course, it's comes at November 26th, the day or 2 days after the Thanksgiving holiday, a day after Black Friday. And it's the finale for the regular season for Tennessee and Vanderbilt. This game has been at the end of the schedule for as long as I can remember. In-state rivalry. Of course, Vanderbilt's won some here in recent memory, but Tennessee's kind of rectified that and has kind of put Vanderbilt kind of back in its place in terms of the historical significance of this rivalry. But Vanderbilt's not going to be very good this year. Clark Lee was abysmal in year number 1. As much as I like Mike Wright and his athletic prowess and what he said at SEC Media Days, he is still not one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. I think Vanderbilt might get a little bit better as a team in year number 2 for Mike Wright, or for Clark Lee, but overall, it will not be a good football team. But it is an SEC opponent. It is your in-state rival. It is coming at the very end of the season. It is a win that you need, and it's a win that I expect Tennessee to get. That is the 9th most important game on the schedule in 2022. And then finally, here in segment 1, the 8th most important game for the University of Tennessee, or if you want to spin it, the 5th least most important game on the schedule for the University of Tennessee will be against the Missouri Tigers. How about this? The Missouri Tigers, a lot of people are talking about who's going to be the third best team in the SEC East going into last season. Many people, myself included, were high on the Missouri Tigers. Boy, that fell flat on everybody's faces. No defense. Stephen Wilkes, former NFL head coach, longtime NFL defensive coordinator, brought in to call plays, brought in to be the DC of Missouri, and that was a train wreck. They were so bad defensively. They had an All-American in Tyler Beatty. They had a really good quarterback, and not really good. They had a good quarterback in Connor Bazelak and couldn't get anything done. Give Missouri credit; they become bowl eligible. They went bowling last year, but it was a train wreck in my opinion. That team is going to be worse, in my opinion, this year. You do not have quarterback. You do not have playmakers. You don't have anybody solidified on the offensive or defensive side of the football from an SEC overall bird's eye view of college football, if you will. But it's a team that's going to be more talented and will give you more of a game than that of Vanderbilt. And it's a team that you need to win towards the end of that heart of a schedule in the SEC in mid-November. So Missouri comes in at number 8 in the most important games for Tennessee in 2022. In segment 2, we're going to get into 7 through 4, going in descending order now. The 7th most important game, the 6th most important game, the 5th most important game, and the 4th most important game. We'll go over our top 3 in the final segment of today's show. But first, before we get into all that, I want to remind you about LinkedIn. As you gear up for the fall and you need the right people to team up and help your small businesses fire on all cylinders, LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. You guys have done it. I've done it. We've all gone on LinkedIn Jobs. We put our online resume, our portfolio, and we've tried to put our best foot forwards in hopes of finding a better job, better security, better financial aid for all of us in our adult lives, especially all of us in our 20s and early 20s when we're kind of just getting started. Now, on the flip side, it might be in a different position now. You may be a small business owner and you're looking to hire trustworthy people that you can trust with your baby, your life, your security. There's no better place to find that than at LinkedIn Jobs. Create a job post in 10 minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond of the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Just use the add your job with the purple hashtag hiring frame to LinkedIn profile and spread the word of what you need. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn #1 jobs in developing quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every single week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. We welcome you back into a Monday edition of Locked On Vols. It is your team every single day. And of course, I'm your host, Eric Cain, at _Cainer and at Locked On Vols. Today, taking a little break from fall camp. Don't worry, we'll get back. Plenty of coverage. There's a scrimmage coming up tomorrow and a lot to talk about with Tennessee football camp. We will get back into it, I promise you. But I did want to go over the importance of every single game on Tennessee's schedule. A lot of you guys have been asking for a bit of a preview, and I told you I would get it. And the summer got away from me. And so I apologize. Maybe that's something we'll do here in the month of August before the season really kicks up and gets going in September. Maybe I can take a segment of each show the next, 2 weeks or so and kind of go in and break down each game. And I'll try to do that. But this is kind of a primer for that if we do that. A lot of you guys are wanting to know about the opponents, the importance of them. And that's what we're doing here today. And of course, if you want to reply, hit up the comment section on YouTube. DM me at _Cainer at Locked On Vols. Hashtag Twitter Tuesday. Add it for tomorrow. We'll spend all the time answering your questions, hearing your comments on tomorrow's show for the mailbag edition. The 7th most important game on the schedule for the University of Tennessee in 2022. It's Alabama. A lot of you guys are probably throwing your headsets, cursing at me in your car, in your cubicle, walking around the track, the neighborhood, running, whatever you're doing when you're listening to this podcast. Did he really just say that the 7th most important game on the schedule is Alabama? If we have any old timers listening to the podcast, I know that might be the most important game every single year, bar none, on the schedule. And I get it. It's very much a generational thing. And I mean, you poll any Tennessee fan, you want to beat Alabama. Don't get me wrong. Alabama is the cream of the crop. It is the standard. It is what college football is. It's what everyone strives to be in college football. But important games on the schedule in 2022. Tennessee's not winning against Alabama in 2022. And if Tennessee does, by gosh, you guys can come on the show and call me stupid for 30 minutes. I'm intrigued to see what Tennessee looks like against Alabama this season. I'm intrigued to see if you can carry that game all the way through fourth quarters without falling off at the very end. Tennessee was in the ballgame in the fourth quarter last year on the road, and Nick Saban was throwing a fit. I want to see how you stack up against Alabama. It will be very much a measuring stick type game. But in my opinion, year number 2 for Heupel in 2022, bringing back a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Bryce Young. I know some of you guys say this is locked on Bama when I talk about Will Anderson Jr. being the best football player in the country. But again, he is, newsflash, Will Anderson Jr., best football player in the country. And of course, he resides in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's going to be quite a challenge. It really will be. So, as I've said many times, I only think that there are two games on the schedule this season that Tennessee can't win. Every other game, Tennessee can win, in my opinion. Will Tennessee win every other game and go 10-2? Not in my opinion. That's not how football works. I've said that countless times. But there are only 2 games on the schedule where right now I still don't think Tennessee can win. And one of those, of course, is Alabama. So I have that as a loss. I will never come off that. It's been a loss since the schedule was announced, obviously. I think that's going to be a loss, but it is your rival. You need to show well in that. As Jeremy Pruitt put it in 2020, in which he was completely full of crap. Tennessee was closing the gap at the end of that game. Tennessee was not. Is Tennessee now? Is Tennessee closing that gap against the big 3 and the rest of college football and, in the top tiers? We're going to need to see that, and we're going to find out at the end of that football game how Tennessee fares. So it's your rival. Tennessee hasn't beaten Alabama in 15 straight games. Last time Tennessee beat Alabama was at home in Knoxville in 2006, a 16-13 victory. I'm not saying Tennessee will beat Alabama this year, but Tennessee needs to play well in that football game. But because, in my opinion, that's not a winnable football game right now, it comes in at number 7. Number 6, a lot of the same thing. Georgia, the reigning national champions, the Georgia Bulldogs. Kirby Smart finally got it. And for the first time since 1980, Georgia was victorious. It is at number 6. You're talking about only 2 games on the schedule where Tennessee can't win in 2022. The other one is Georgia, in my opinion. It's a loss for me because I understand Georgia lost so much on that defense. I understand Georgia doesn't have the flashy playmaking ability on offense, but depth. Kirby Smart came in number 1, top 3 in the recruiting rankings for the last 5 years and couldn't do anything with it until last year. You know why? Because the 2s, the 3s, the travel squad, everybody on that bus can step off and play for pretty much anybody in the country. They are good top to bottom. They have depth, and they're going to have guys step up and fill in those gaps. Plus, they still bring back a whole lot of talent on defense and a whole lot of talent on offense just from a pure football playing perspective. Georgia's won last 5 straight games. Last time Tennessee won, it was the Juwan Jennings Hail Mary between the hedges. Tennessee will return between the hedges, looking to pick up its 3rd win in its past 13 years in the series. We'll see what happens. Much like Alabama, it is very much a measuring stick game. Where is Tennessee at the end of that game? How does Tennessee stack up against Georgia? Had a good first quarter against Georgia. In fact, the only team in the regular season to lead against Georgia after the first quarter. And then that second quarter lull happened. What does Tennessee look like against the Bulldogs this year? Very much a measuring stick game, but much like Alabama, in my opinion, one of 2 games Tennessee can't win this year. And that's why it comes in at number 6 on the schedule. Now back to the games that I think Tennessee can win and should win. Number 5 on the most important games on the schedule for the 2022 Volunteers is at South Carolina in Week 12. A lot of hype, a lot of praise in the offseason, what Shane Beamer's doing. I had Shane Beamer winning 4 games last year. He showed me beat a dead in the win Auburn team, beat a dead in the win Florida team. Didn't have a quarterback. He showed me. He really did. And the more and more I listen to Shane Beamer, very much, I know we make the Butch Jones comparisons, call me used car salesman, but that's what you got to do when you're trying to reinvent in a program, right? That's what you got to do. He's saying all the right things. He's doing all the right things, and he's recruiting well. And he's got his team better via the transfer portal. I don't know if Spencer Rattler's going to be a stud this year. I highly doubt it, but I can tell you this, there's a lot of talent there. And it's going to be better than any option he ever had at any point in time last season. I promise you that. The running back position is going to be much better than what it was last year, going out and getting the leading rusher from Wake Forest, a very successful football team last year. Added things to that defense. But Tennessee in year 2 should continue to win those football games. That's a sneaky trap game for the University of Tennessee. Sneaky game. I'm not saying it's a loss. We'll see. I mean, it's late in the season, week 12. We'll have to see what these 2 teams look like heading into that week. But I'll say it's a win right now for the University of Tennessee. It should be a win. but that's a sneaky game. That is a sneaky game at the end of the schedule. I'll say that. And then finally, last one here in segment number 2, the fourth most important football game on the schedule for the University of Tennessee this year. It is on the road in Death Valley at LSU. That is one of those games that I've chalked up as an L right now. Can Tennessee win that football game? Absolutely. Rebuilding, retooling, first-year head coach. We know, horrible human being, great head football coach, Brian Kelly. There is talent on that roster. They have quarterback options who I think are pretty solid. Jayden Daniels is not bad when playing correctly. You got Max Johnson still, not horrible when put in the right positions. You got Gus Meyer, an underclassman who I think could turn into a pretty decent quarterback. There's talent on that roster. The best wide receiver, in my opinion, in the country, in Keyshawn Boutte. There's talent on that roster. Can they figure it out? Can they put it together? And what type of start will they have to the season? Tennessee will get an off week on October the 1st before traveling down to the Bayou to take on the LSU Tigers, probably an afternoon game, either be at 3:30 or 8 o'clock. And I'm intrigued to see what Tennessee looks like on the road. That's a challenging game. And keep in mind, too, that's an important game because you got Alabama coming up next. You got a breather against the Skyhawks of UT Martin. Then you got Kentucky, Georgia, Missouri, South Carolina, Vanderbilt to end the season. Very important game. Probably a loss for me right now, but we will see what these two teams look like. A very important game on the road for Josh Heupel's team to begin the month of October. And that is why it is the fourth most important football game on the schedule for me, in my opinion, here in 2022. All right, the top 3 by process of elimination. You know that I haven't discussed the Pitt game, the Kentucky game, and the Florida game, but which order will those 3 teams come in? Find out when we return right here on Locked On Vols. But first, I want to remind you guys about BetOnline. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports events at the #1 source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news for every single league, including Major League Baseball, the NFL right around the corner. NBA starts before you know it. Same with the NHL. Combat sports forever ongoing. Esports, reality television, and even golf, both PGA and LIV. BetOnline.net continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have got you covered. Head on to the website today over at BetOnline.net or use your mobile device. Learn about all the latest action happening right now with all your favorite teams and your favorite sports. BetOnline.net, it is where the game starts. Just a couple minutes left here on this Monday edition of Locked On Vols. Welcome back into it, guys. Twitter Tuesday, the mailbag coming up on tomorrow's show. Get those questions, those comments in at _Cainer at Locked On Vols. Hit me up at Cainer on Air on Facebook and comment on this episode, today's episode of Locked On Vols on YouTube. I will find them on there as well. We'll take as many minutes, as much time as we need to begin tomorrow's episode by answering and hearing from you guys. It's when you take over the show every single week here on Locked On Vols. All right, we've gone through from 12 all the way down to number 4, the most important games in descending order for Tennessee on the 2022 schedule. Okay, we have 3 teams remaining. We got Kentucky, Florida, and Pittsburgh. What order will those programs come in terms of who I think are the most important games on the schedule for the University of Tennessee? Let's go with number 3 right now. And it will be at the structure formerly known as Heinz Field. I forgot what do they call it now. It's something stupid, but it is going to be in Pittsburgh at Pitt against the Panthers, that week 2 matchup. So huge game for the University of Tennessee. And I've said this continuously, and I'm not going to back away from it. In year 2, where that program is right now, and we'll go over that in a moment, where Tennessee is right now, that's a game in year 2 that you need to go out there and win. Like, I would be, in my opinion, that is a disappointing loss if Tennessee does not come away with a win. And I know football changes everything. I get it. What's this team look like, after the rest of fall camp and week 1? I get all that. But that would be a disappointing loss, in my opinion, if the University of Tennessee does not go up to Pittsburgh and win against the Panthers. Look at Tennessee. We know Tennessee's roster, one of the best wide receivers in the country, a really, really good starter at quarterback and Hendon Hooker, 4 or 5 starters coming back on the offensive line. Defensively, you have more options. Can it result in better play? We'll find out. Still very much a question mark. But look at Pitt. You're going from Kenny Pickett down to Keaton Slovis. Significant drop-off. Slovis is not horrible, but he's not Kenny Pickett. Significant drop-off. You're losing Jordan Addison, the biggest playmaking option in the country last year. He has gone to Southern Cal for about $3.2 million, essentially. Significant. All right, you are losing one of the best players in the country. You return an awful lot on that front seven, and Pat Narduzzi prides himself on defensive play. I get all that. It will not be easy, but that's a game in year number 2 for Josh Heupel that you go out there and you win that football game and you come home. All right, Tennessee needs to be 2-0 after the first 2 weeks of the season. I expect Tennessee to be 2-0 after the first 2 weeks of the season, but that Pitt game, if you lose that, if you stumble, Tennessee should have won that game last year. It did not. If you stumble out of the gate and lose that game, you're looking at 1-1 going into Akron, 2-1 going into Florida. I mean, it takes a little bit of the juice off it, if you will, with that Florida matchup. You're ruining potentially a 4-0 start before the off week, before the bye week. That's an important football game for Tennessee, and that's a game that Tennessee can and Tennessee should win. We'll find out. It's very important. It's on the road. It will not be easy, but that's a game that is very important for the University of Tennessee, more so for the trajectory of the program with Josh Heupel in year 2. That is the huge, that might be one of the biggest measuring stick games for me in terms of year 2. What can you accomplish? Obviously, you want to be one of the big threes. We'll get to Florida here in a moment. But going on the road early in the season, picking up a win against a team that everybody except Phil Steele in America is going to have you favored to win. Go get it done. We'll find out week 2. Don't have to wait long on September the 10th. That game will be at 3:30 on ABC. Number 2, the second most important game on the schedule for the University of Tennessee. And by process of elimination, when I say this name, you will know who I have as the most important game, but we will get to that here in a moment. I'm going to focus all on number 2 right now. The second most important game on the schedule for the University of Tennessee in 2022, in my opinion, and a lot of you guys are going to laugh because a lot of you guys think I love this guy. Very fond of him as a coach because I think he's really good. More with less than anybody in the country. Mark Stoops and the Kentucky Wildcats. Disregard the logo on the helmet. Please hear me out. A lot of people are rolling their eyes right now. You can't just look at the logo on the helmet. We can nitpick until we're all blue in the face. I get it. Yeah, their non-conference schedule's weak. They've had 2-win seasons. Tennessee still beat them. That is all true. I'm not saying that is not true. Disregard the logo on the football helmet and look at what Kentucky's accomplished under Mark Stoops every single year, specifically the last 4 years. 2 10-win seasons, coming off a 10-win season, playing stout defense that will get after the quarterback, a defense that will rank inside the top 30 pretty much every single year, okay? This is a team that prides itself on the run game, has a leading rusher in the SEC coming back in Chris Rodriguez. What's his status? We'll have to find out. Of course, he had some offseason trouble, but the leading rusher in the SEC is set to come back in C-Rod and Chris Rodriguez. Yeah, you lost a little bit on the offensive line. I understand that, but you bring back a quarterback in Will Levis, and though it's overhyped and we like to make fun of it a little bit, that is the best quarterback Mark Stoops has ever had at Kentucky and one of the better athletic quarterbacks Kentucky's ever had. And he will be playing in the National Football League, and he will likely be a day 2 draft pick next year. That game is not going to be easy. Kentucky is a solid football team. There's a reason Kentucky was picked second by the media at SEC Media Days to finish behind Georgia in the East. You guys know I had Tennessee finishing second and Kentucky finishing third. Okay, that's not, blowing the horn of the home team. That's just kind of how I see it. I think Tennessee is slightly better than Kentucky, but I think it's close. In fact, the way the media voted, Kentucky got 3 more votes compared to where Tennessee got and finishing second instead of third. It's that close. That game is monumental for the season for Tennessee. You're coming off a stretch to where you're at Florida, you're against Florida. You have an off week at LSU, against Alabama, breather against UT Martin, and then you got home against Kentucky to close out the month of October. That month of October is brutal. You need to finish strong, just like Tennessee did last year, pulling out a win on the road at Kroger Field. It wasn't easy. Tennessee made a stop. It's only stop all game long when it needed to, and it did. Tennessee also had a pick 6 in that game. Let's not forget that with Lawrence Taylor, but still, you know what I'm saying. That Kentucky game is going to be tough. And year 2, if you want to continue talking about trajectories and where this team should be at the end of year 2 with Josh Heupel and all that, you need to continue winning these type of football games. Kentucky, not easy. Kentucky, one of Tennessee's oldest rivalries. Kentucky is a good football team. I think it's going to come down and won't win 10 games this year, but it could win 9. This Kentucky team's a good football team. I think Tennessee is in position to be better. I think in terms of the matchup, Tennessee does not match up well with Kentucky. If you're looking at it from a Kentucky perspective, everything Kentucky does, Tennessee does the opposite. So Tennessee has the potential to run them out off the field, but again, they do things well that Tennessee struggles with. So that is a super important game for Tennessee. It's your rival. It's a good team you need to beat in year number 2, and you need to close the month of October strong to where wins are going to be few and far between. At LSU, against Alabama, UT Martin, and Kentucky. Only one guaranteed win in that month. Can you split it? Can you make it 2-2? Maybe cap it off with a cherry on top, make it a 3-1 month. We will find out. Huge game on October 29th in Knoxville against Kentucky. And then by process of elimination, you know that Tennessee's most important game on the schedule in 2022 is against your arch rival, is against a team that has beaten you 16 of the past 17 times. I'm not trying to rub salt salt in the wound here to make it sting, but it is what it is. Florida has owned Tennessee, but it is the Florida Gators. Why? Number 1, it's your first SEC football game. Number 2, it's a team this year that you are better than. You are better than. They are starting over. Billy Napier, I think, is a good coach. I keep saying this. I sound like a broken record. I think he's a good coach. I think Florida's got talent on that roster, but you are ahead in your rebuild compared to where Florida is right now. You have more talent on your roster. You are another year into the system compared to where Florida is. You've been recruiting better a little bit for the most of the year now. They're kind of catching up for 2023, but still, you need to win this football game. If not now, then when will you beat Florida? When? Because Florida's coming. Florida's going to be better in 23. They're going to be better in 24. Will you be? We'll find out. Beat them while they're down. Beat Florida. It's your rival. You poll people that's in my demo in the mid to late 20s, likely they're going to say Florida is the team you want to beat every single year. If you demo the older demographics and the older generations, they're going to say Alabama, and then everybody else will probably say Georgia and or Kentucky. Some of the old timers will even say Vanderbilt. I get it, but Florida, I understand historically it's not been a great series for Tennessee overall at all. But even historically, you haven't played Florida every single year, since the calendar flipped over the SEC divisions in '92. I get all that, but a huge game for Tennessee. You need to beat your Florida. You need to beat your rival in Florida, and you need to position yourself to be 4-0 before the off week, before you really get into the gauntlets of at LSU, Alabama, UT Martin, Kentucky, Georgia, Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt to end the season. Tennessee can and should beat Florida in 2022. We're going to have to find out. But for some reason, Florida has Tennessee's number. Will that continue? We will see here in the year of 2022. All right. I have gone a little bit overboard today. I do appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Vols and kind of going over this exercise. What we did today, we talked about the most important games on the schedule. We ranked the most important games on the schedule for the University of Tennessee in descending order all the way down to number 1. I'll give it to you again. The 12th most important game on the schedule is Akron. 11th, UT Martin. 10th, Ball State. 9th, Vanderbilt. 8th, Missouri. 7th, Alabama. 6th, Georgia. 5th, South Carolina. 4th, LSU. 3rd most important game on the schedule is Pitt this year. 2nd is Kentucky. And the most important football game on the schedule for the 2022 Volunteers is arch rival Florida. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough. Please continue to subscribe, like, comment, help out those algorithms, all that and more on the YouTube channel. If you are a frequent listener and you haven't subscribed on either YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, Google, wherever you find your podcast, please subscribe and, subscribe on a couple of different channels. That would mean a whole lot to me, help out the show an awful lot. Now that we're done watching Locked On Vols and making that your first listen, check out Locked On SEC. No better time to follow the SEC from a bird's eye view than listening to Chris Gordy. He's got the news and notes from all the camps around the SEC. That's Locked On SEC, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make that your number 2 listen, your second listen behind Locked On Vols every single day. We'll be back to the camp notes. What happened over the weekend, what happened at Monday's practice, and what's going to happen at scrimmage number 1 coming up on a Tuesday. That's tomorrow, plus Twitter Tuesday. Get them in. We'll discuss all that and more. Same time, same place. Pull up a chair. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, everybody.